Sometimes the quietest names cause the loudest noise. That's what happened the morning Representative Jasmine Crockett spoke on live television and said 3 words no one expected. To hear Barron Trump's name. It started like any other Sunday show. Bright lights, coffee cups on the table, calm voices talking about politics the way people talk about the weather. But inside that Washington studio, something was about to break wide open. Jasmine Crockett sat tall under the lights. Her navy suit looked sharp, her voice calm, her eyes steady. Across from her sat Victor Levinson, a man who loved to interrupt people. The topic was dull at first. Campaign finance, ethics, the usual Washington talk. Then Jasmine leaned forward. She lowered her tone, clear and careful. "I just find it strange," she said, "that no one wants to discuss what happened with the trust realignment in January 2021, particularly the one that involved Barron Trump's name." The air went still. For a second, even the cameras seemed to stop moving. The host, De'Ara Collins, blinked and tried to smile, but her hand trembled near her cue cards. Victor smirked, ready to call Jasmine reckless. But she didn't back down. De'Ara cleared her throat. "Congresswoman, are you suggesting the former president's son was part of a financial transfer?" "I'm saying," Jasmine replied, "there's documentation with his name on it, and we should stop pretending it doesn't exist." The control room panicked. Someone shouted, "Go to commercial." But it was too late. The words had already escaped into the world. Within minutes, the clip was everywhere. X, Instagram, TikTok. 12 seconds of live television turned into a firestorm that no one could control. A young producer in the control room whispered, "This one's going to blow up." And it did. There hadn't been a political moment this unpredictable in years. People didn't know what shocked them more, that Jasmine said it, or that she sounded so calm when she did. Phones started buzzing across DC. Editors called their reporters. Bloggers began typing threads before the show even returned from break. Some said Jasmine was brave. Others said she'd crossed a sacred line. Either way, everyone was talking about Barron Trump. But Jasmine hadn't spoken carelessly. A week earlier, she had received a thin manila envelope on her desk. No return address, no note, only a scan of a document dated January 12, 2021. It described a blind trust, and inside that trust was a line with one name, Barron William Trump Crockett. She read it twice, then 3 more times. It didn't make sense. Why would the youngest Trump's name appear there? She had handled hundreds of filings before, and this one felt different, deliberate, the kind of entry you make when you want money to move quietly. Without attention, Jasmine's chief of staff, Patrice Lattimore, warned her to leave it alone. "If you bring that up on air," Patrice said, "they'll call you heartless. They'll say you're dragging a kid into politics." Jasmine stared at the paper. "He's not a kid anymore," she said softly. "They used his name. That makes him a shield." She tried to let it go. She really did. But when Victor Levinson started the TV debate that morning, mocking investigations, calling them witch hunts, something inside Jasmine snapped. She was tired of seeing power hide behind innocence. So she spoke. Calm, steady, certain. After the broadcast, she sat in silence backstage. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from colleagues, reporters, strangers. She didn't read them. She just stared at the wall, thinking about what she'd done, out in the city. Headlines were already forming. Across the country, in a sunny cafe in Sarasota, Florida, Barron Trump had no idea any of this was happening. He was sipping iced coffee with his childhood friend Drew, flipping through a college course catalog. He wanted to study computer science. Maybe philosophy. Something simple, quiet. He had stayed out of the spotlight for years. No interviews, no social media, no politics. He liked peace. Then his phone buzzed, a text from a cousin. "You okay?" Turn on the news. Then another. Then 3 missed calls. "Bro, what did Crockett just say about you?" Barron frowned. What are they talking about? Drew showed him his phone. The clip played on repeat. Jasmine Crockett's calm voice saying his full name for the world to hear. Barron froze. His hand trembled. He played it again, trying to understand. Why would she say that? What did she mean, trust realignment? He felt something heavy settle in his chest. Not anger yet, just confusion. Let's go, he said quietly. They left the cafe and walked fast through the warm Florida air. Barron's phone kept buzzing, but he didn't answer. By the time they reached his condo, his mother was waiting. Melania stood near the window, phone in hand. Her expression cold. I told your father not to use your name for those things, she said. Barron dropped his keys. So it's true? I don't know, she whispered. Probably. He did many things without telling me. Barron's stomach turned. Did I sign something? No. Then how does my name end up there? Because that's how they operate, she said quietly. They use names that look innocent. Names like yours. He sank into a chair. That's not innocent, he said. That's wrong. She didn't argue. She didn't have to. Later that night, his phone lit up again. His father's name appeared on the screen. He didn't answer. He just stared until it stopped ringing. Something in him shifted. A quiet sense of betrayal that no speech could explain. The next morning, cameras waited outside their gate. Reporters shouted questions. Barron, were you part of the trust? He kept walking, head down, saying nothing. But silence didn't protect him anymore. It only made people talk louder. Back in Palm Beach, Donald Trump paced inside his sitting room. The TV behind him played the clip again and again. Crockett names Barron Trump, the headline read. She wasn't supposed to go there, he muttered. His lawyer, Seth Delaney, stood still, not daring to interrupt. Melania sat on the couch, arms crossed. She said nothing, but her eyes said everything. Ivanka's voice came through speakerphone. Dad, this is going to spiral. Reporters are already asking for trust documents. Donald sighed. Let them dig. There's nothing illegal. Maybe not illegal, Ivanka said, but there's something. That's all they need. Melania looked up. He didn't know Donald. Trump stopped pacing. Who didn't? Barron, she said. He's angry, and he has every right to be. For a second, the former president's face softened. Then it hardened again. He turned to his lawyer. Find out who gave Crockett that file. I want a name. Meanwhile, Barron sat alone in his room. His phone buzzed with messages from numbers he didn't recognize. He opened none of them. The headlines said enough. That evening, his father walked into the room. Mind if I sit? Trump asked. Barron nodded slightly. Trump sat on the edge of the chair, voice low. I didn't think it would blow up like this. Barron stared at the ceiling. Then why use my name? You weren't involved in anything. It was just paperwork, his father said. A name helps make things look official. Barron turned his head slowly. You mean I make it look clean? Trump hesitated. It was clean, Barron's voice dropped. I didn't want this life. I've spent years staying quiet. Now you've dragged me back in, Trump nodded once. Sometimes you don't get to choose what gets attached to your name. Barron met his father's eyes. I didn't attach anything. You did. The words landed like a stone in still water. Trump said nothing. The silence between them said enough. Outside, news anchors debated who was right. Online, millions of people were arguing about a young man who had never said a word. Was he innocent? Was he complicit? Was he a victim of his father's power or part of it? Everyone had an opinion. No one had the truth. By Monday morning, Barron's face filled every newsfeed. The story wasn't about politics anymore. It was about silence and how long someone could hold it before it cracked. Across the ocean of noise, one voice cut through. Jasmine Crockett refused to apologize. I didn't accuse anyone, she told reporters. I pointed to a document. If that document didn't exist, they'd have said so by now. She was right. The Trump legal team said nothing. No denial. No threat, just silence. And that silence spoke louder than any press release. But somewhere in the mess of headlines, A small post appeared online, a single tweet from an independent journalist named Curtis Rose. He wrote, "Why was a trust listing BWT as beneficiary created 3 days before the presidency ended?" And attached one blurry document. People started connecting dots. Barron, William, Trump, B. T. The initials matched. In Sarasota, Barron scrolled and saw it for himself. He read it 3 times. No denial from his family. No statement. Just silence again. He closed his eyes. For the first time, he felt something new. Not anger, not fear, but a need to speak. The world had spoken for him long enough. It was time for him to speak for himself. He didn't know how. He didn't know when. But deep down, he knew one thing: staying quiet wouldn't save him this time. He reached for his phone and started typing. His hands trembled a little. Words came, then disappeared as he deleted them. What could he even say? The world didn't know him. They only knew the name, the photos, the stories built around him by people who had never met him. He tried again. "I didn't sign anything," then stopped. It sounded defensive. He typed, "I didn't know," then erased that too. It sounded weak. The phone screen went dim. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. He didn't want to defend himself. He wanted to explain himself. But who would listen without twisting his words? For years, silence had been his safety. Now it was his prison. He opened his contacts and scrolled down slowly. So many names meant nothing to him anymore. Old tutors, security staff, distant relatives. Then one name stopped him: Leah Quinton. Leah had been different. They'd sat together in 2 classes at Columbia Prep, literature and philosophy. She'd never treated him like a trump. To her, he was just Barron, quiet, tall, awkward, trying to disappear into a hoodie that never fit right. She had once told him, "You don't have to speak loud to be heard. You just have to mean it." He remembered that line now. He opened the message box and hesitated. Then typed, "Not sure you'll want to touch this, but I'd rather talk to someone real than be chewed up by CNN." He stared at it for a long time before pressing send. He didn't expect a reply. But within a few minutes, 3 little dots appeared on the screen. Leah replied, "Are you sure?" He typed, "Yeah," and that was it. The next afternoon, she was in Sarasota. No cameras. No makeup crew. No network. Just Leah, a friend with a small YouTube channel about mental health and truth. She carried one small recorder and a calm presence that reminded him of quiet mornings before his life became noise. "Are you ready?" she asked softly. "I don't know," he said. "But I need to say something." They sat in 2 chairs facing each other. The blinds were half drawn. The room was quiet, except for the faint hum of the air conditioner. Leah pressed record. Barron took a breath. "Never signed anything," he began. "I didn't even know about it until last week." His voice was steady, but low. Leah didn't interrupt. She let silence fill the space between his sentences. "If someone wants to leave me something when I'm 30, fine," he continued. "But don't use my name like I agreed to it." "I didn't." He looked down at his hands. "I think people need to stop assuming silence means agreement. Sometimes we're just tired of being spoken for." Leah's eyes softened. She didn't ask more. 15 minutes later, the recording was done. No script, no edits. Just his voice, honest and raw. That night, Leah uploaded the clip. No video, only audio. She titled it, "The Voice Behind the Silence." Within an hour, it started spreading. By morning, it had crossed 1 million plays. Comments flooded in. Some said it was fake. Others said it was brave, but most said the same thing. He sounds human. For the first time, people weren't arguing about him. They were listening to him. "Let Barron Speak" began trending across platforms. Even people who disliked his father said the recording felt different. Quiet, sincere, unexpected. It wasn't a speech. It was a sigh that finally reached the world. In Washington, the story shifted overnight. Reporters replayed the clip on every network. Analysts debated whether his words were a strategy or a slip. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Jasmine Crockett sat in her office watching the headlines change. She'd been painted as bold one day, reckless the next. Now the same outlets that had praised her were asking, did she go too far? Her chief of staff, Patrice, stood by the window. You don't have to apologize, Patrice said softly. But you have to say something. People are rewriting what you meant. Jasmine stared at her phone screen, a freeze frame of Barron's quote. I didn't sign anything. It was everywhere. They're shifting the focus, Jasmine whispered, making it about feelings, not facts. Tone gets attention, Patrice said. Truth keeps arguments alive, Jasmine exhaled. Do you think I went too far? Patrice hesitated. I think you went further than they were ready for. That evening, Jasmine set up her phone in her kitchen. No studio lights, no background music, just her, tired but firm. To those who felt I crossed a line, she said gently, I understand your reaction. But my job is not to protect power. My job is to question it. If a name appears in a trust used to hide wealth, that name should be discussed, even if it makes people uncomfortable. She paused, then added, accountability isn't cruelty. It's honesty. She posted the video and turned off her phone. Within an hour, it went viral. Half the comments praised her strength. The other half called her cold, but Jasmine Crockett didn't back down. She had faced harder storms before. Later that night, a plain envelope arrived at her office. No return address. Inside were 3 printed pages and a handwritten note. Custodial override filed under adult minor clause. Patrice frowned. Could be a trap, Jasmine's eyes narrowed. Or it could be proof. She slipped the papers into her briefcase. That night, she watched Barron's audio interview again. The moment he said, I didn't sign up for any of this. For the first time, Jasmine didn't see a Trump. She saw a young man caught in something much bigger than himself. The next morning, she walked into a closed-door meeting at the Capitol. 2 senators, a handful of aides, 1 ethics counsel. Someone had already printed her quote on a slide. They were debating whether she had broken decorum by naming him on live television. Do you regret it? One senator asked. Jasmine leaned forward. No. I regret that we live in a system where a 20-year-old's name can be used to hide money, and no one blinks until someone says it out loud. The room fell silent. Even her critics couldn't argue with that. Meanwhile, in Sarasota, Barron sat by the pool. The world outside his gate was still spinning, but his house felt quiet again. He scrolled through messages. Thousands now. Some kind. Some cruel. Some just curious. But one caught his eye. It was from an unknown number. We have the same initials, BWT. We should talk. No name. No signature. He showed it to his mother. Melania frowned. Ignore it. But something about it felt strange. Familiar. That night, he couldn't sleep. He went outside, the moonlight shining across the still water. Melania followed him, wearing a shawl and holding tea. I watched the interview, she said. You sounded like yourself. That's good, he said quietly. I wasn't trying to sound like anyone else, she smiled faintly. Do you want to know what your father said? Barron shook his head. Not really. He said you were careful, that you didn't give them anything to twist. Barron looked at the water. I think he was scared. Melania raised an eyebrow. Scared of what? Of me saying more, Barron said softly. She smiled sadly. No, of you saying just enough. The line hung in the air, somewhere far away. On CNN, they were debating whether children of public figures should be held responsible for what's done in their name. Barron turned off the TV. He was done being the subject of a debate. Hours later, headlights glowed across the driveway. His father was here. Melania opened the door but didn't say a word. Donald walked in wearing a navy blazer. No tie, face pale with exhaustion. Can we talk? He asked. Barron nodded, sitting on the couch. Trump didn't sit at first. He stood there, staring at his son. I didn't want this for you, he said finally. I was trying to protect you. Barron looked up. By putting my name on something I didn't know about. It was paperwork, Trump said. A legal shield. It kept things separate. For you, Barron said. Not for me. Trump rubbed his temple. It's complicated. Barron's voice was calm. No, it's not. For a long moment, they said nothing. Then Trump spoke again, softer this time. You think I did this to hurt you? I think you didn't care enough to ask if I wanted to be part of it, Barron replied. Trump looked away. You're my son, Barron nodded slowly. That doesn't make me your cover. Trump's face tightened. For once, he had no comeback. He had spent a lifetime winning arguments. But this wasn't politics. This was his son. Finally, he said, I'll fix this. Barron shook his head. You can't fix what people already believe, Trump's voice lowered. Then tell me what you want me to do. Barron stood. Say the truth. That you used my name. That you shouldn't have. The older man's eyes flickered. That's not how this works. Then maybe that's the problem, Barron said quietly. Silence again. The kind that stretches too long and says too much. When Trump left, Melania walked in. He won't admit it, she said. I know, Barron replied. But he heard me. Meanwhile, across the country, something else was happening. Curtis Rose, the independent journalist from Phoenix, was still digging. He had traced a network of shell companies and custodial filings that matched Jasmine's envelope perfectly. Every line, every date pointed to one conclusion. Someone powerful was moving money fast before leaving office, and whoever sent Jasmine that envelope wanted the truth to come out. No matter the cost. Curtis wrote a message to Jasmine that night. It was short. You were right. And there's more. Check Delaware filings under BWL Custodial Group. Jasmine opened it at midnight. She looked up at the window. City lights blinking beyond the glass. She felt that old familiar pull, the one between fear and duty. She whispered to herself, they're not ready for what comes next. And miles away, Barron looked at his phone again. The strange message from the unknown number flashed once more. We have the same initials. We should talk, he hesitated. His thumb hovered over reply, whoever it was. They knew something. He typed, who is this? And hit send. The dots appeared. Someone was typing back. Then the reply came, someone who can prove you were never meant to stay silent. Barron's heart pounded. He stared at the glowing screen. The quiet room suddenly heavy with possibility. Outside, the waves brushed softly against the shore. The night felt still, but something had shifted again. He didn't know it yet, but that single message would open a door he could never close. The reply sat glowing on his phone screen. Someone who can prove you were never meant to stay silent. Barron stared at it. Heart pounding, he typed back fast. What do you mean? Who are you? No answer. He waited. 10 seconds, 30, 1 minute, nothing. Then finally, another message appeared. You don't know me? But I used to work with them. Delaware, January 2021. You should check your name under BWL Custodial Group. Barron frowned. Why are you telling me this? The reply came instantly. Because they used you, kid. And you deserve to know how. His chest tightened. He didn't know if this was real or a trap, but something about it felt right. Too specific to be fake. He screenshotted the texts and sent them to Leah. You think this is legit? He wrote. Leah replied, maybe, but don't go down this rabbit hole alone. He typed back, I'm already in it. Across the country in Washington, Jasmine Crockett was still awake. The city outside her apartment was quiet. But her mind wasn't. She sat at her desk, papers scattered, phone buzzing with messages she didn't want to read. Curtis Rose had sent her another link. Delaware filings, proof of transfers. The pattern too clean to ignore. Every line led back to the same structure. BWL Custodial Group. She rubbed her forehead and whispered, BWL, Barron William, Lord. She stopped mid-thought. Trump. It was all there. hidden in plain sight. Her phone buzzed again. Patrice, her chief of staff. "You're not going to believe this," Patrice said over the line. "The Delaware registration, the one you mentioned, it's been sealed. The record's gone from the public database." Jasmine's pulse quickened. "When?" 30 minutes ago. "Who ordered it?" "Unknown authority. Classified." Jasmine leaned back in her chair. Staring at the ceiling, someone was covering tracks, fast. At that exact moment, Barron sat at his desk in Sarasota. Opening his laptop, he typed Delaware Public Trust Filings and searched BWL Custodial Group. The screen flashed. "Record not found." He refreshed. Nothing. His stomach dropped. They were already ahead of him. He clicked the messages again. The stranger had sent one more text. "Check your email." "I sent you something before they could erase it." Barron's inbox showed a new message from a random address. TruthLedger21A postmail.com. No subject line. One attachment. He hesitated, then opened it. The document wasn't long, just 3 pages. But it was enough. A signature he recognized. A list of assets. A custodial override filed in the interest of a minor beneficiary, to be reclassified upon majority. Next to it, his initials. BWT, he felt his throat tighten. This wasn't speculation anymore. It was proof. He closed the laptop. Breathing fast, someone had used his name, and they had done it while the world was distracted by politics and power. He called Leah. "It's true," he said softly. "Barron, slow down." "What do you mean?" "I saw it." "My initials. The same date. The same lawyer. They didn't just use my name. They built something around it." Leah was silent. Then she said, "We need to go on record." "But not through the media. Through the truth." He hesitated. "You think people will even listen?" "They already are," she said. "You spoke once and they believed you. Now show them why." For the first time, he didn't argue. He just nodded. "Okay." Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett sat with the sealed files on her desk. She didn't know Barron was also staring at the same documents. Only from another side of the country. But fate had a strange way of connecting people who refused to stay silent. The next morning, Jasmine's phone rang again, unknown number. She almost ignored it. Then she picked up. A young voice said, "Congresswoman Crockett?" "Yes." "This is Barron Trump." Jasmine froze. She hadn't expected to hear that name directly, not like this. For a few seconds, she didn't speak. Then she said softly, "I didn't mean to hurt you." "I know," Barron said. "You just said what everyone else was afraid to." Silence. Then Jasmine asked, "Why are you calling me?" "Because you were right," Barron said quietly. "They used my name, and I can prove it." Jasmine closed her eyes. "You have documents?" "Yes, copies." "Then don't send them electronically," she said quickly. "Bring them to me." "Don't trust anyone else," he hesitated. "How do I know I can trust you?" "You don't," she said simply. "But I've already risked everything by saying your name. I'm not your enemy." There was another pause. Then Barron said, "All right, I'll come to D.C." 2 days later, a black sedan pulled up to a quiet building near Capitol Hill. No cameras, no press. Just tinted windows and one long shadow waiting by the entrance. Jasmine Crockett. When Barron stepped out, she was struck by how calm he looked. No security, no entourage. Just a tall, quiet young man holding a small folder under his arm. "Congresswoman," he said, his tone polite. "Barron," she replied. "Thank you for coming." They sat in a small conference room. He slid the folder toward her. "This is everything I have," he said. "Files, signatures, emails between my father's lawyers. They thought I'd never see them." Jasmine opened the folder and skimmed the first page. Her jaw tightened. The same initials, the same date. It matched the document she'd received weeks earlier. "Where did you get this?" she asked. "Someone sent it to me," Barron said. "They said they used to work in Delaware." Jasmine's eyes met his. "Then they were right. They used you as a front," Barron exhaled. "I just want it to stop." I don't care about the money. I just want my name back. Jasmine nodded slowly. You will, but you have to understand this isn't just about you anymore. It's about everyone who's ever been hidden behind power. He looked at her for a long moment. Then let's make it public. Jasmine hesitated. That will destroy your father. Barron's voice didn't shake. Maybe he destroyed himself. That night, Jasmine and her team prepared a joint statement. They didn't call it an accusation. They called it a matter of record. They attached the documents and sent them to 3 outlets. 1 liberal, 1 conservative, 1 independent. The story broke the next morning at dawn. Headlines everywhere. Trust files reveal misuse of custodial names. Barron Trump confirms. Documents authentic. The world exploded again. Cable news went wall to wall. Barron's voice clip replayed over slow piano music. But this time, he wasn't silent. In a brief live statement, he said, "My name was used in ways I didn't consent to. This isn't about politics. It's about truth. Everyone deserves to know when their identity is turned into someone else's shield." He didn't shout. He didn't accuse. He just spoke, steady, calm, human. Even people who had ignored the story before leaned in now. It wasn't about left or right anymore. It was about how easily power could take an innocent name and twist it into something else. At Mar-a-Lago, the silence was heavier than any speech. Donald Trump sat in his study, the television on mute. His lawyers were talking in circles, but he wasn't listening. Melania stood by the window, arms folded. "You should call him," she said quietly. Trump didn't answer. "You should at least listen to what he's saying," she added. He turned toward her, eyes tired. "He doesn't understand the world yet." Melania shook her head. "No, you don't understand him. Outside, reporters filled the gates again. But inside, it was just a father, a mother, and the echo of a son who finally found his own voice." 3 days later, Jasmine Crockett returned to Capitol Hill for an ethics hearing. Some colleagues glared at her. Some nodded in quiet respect. When she spoke, her tone was steady. "Transparency isn't comfortable," she said, "but silence costs more." The room was silent when she finished. Even her critics couldn't deny it anymore. She had started something no one could bury again. That night, she received one final message from an unknown number. It read simply, "Thank you for saying what others wouldn't. He's free now." No name, no signature. She didn't need one. In Sarasota, Barron walked by the shore at dusk. The sky was gold and gray, waves calm against the sand. For the first time in a long time, he felt lighter. He wasn't angry. He wasn't scared. He was just free, from the silence, from the shadow, from the weight of someone else's decisions. Leah called him that evening. "How do you feel?" He smiled faintly. "Like I can breathe again." She laughed softly. "That's a good start." He looked out at the horizon. "Do you think people will ever stop seeing me as a name?" "Maybe not," she said. "But now they'll know the voice behind it." He nodded slowly. "That's enough." The wind blew gently, carrying the smell of salt and rain. Behind him, his phone buzzed once more. A message from an unknown number. He opened it and froze. It said, "The trust wasn't the only thing they used your name for." He stared at it for a long time, the waves crashing softly nearby. The sun was sinking, the light fading fast. He took a deep breath, the ocean wind brushing his face. Whatever came next, he wasn't afraid anymore, because once you've told the truth, there's no going back to silence, and somewhere in the distance. As the last light disappeared, the world was still listening. The sky turned dark, and the waves whispered softly against the shore. Barron didn't move for a long time. He just stood there, phone in hand, watching the last line on the screen fade into the night. The trust wasn't the only thing they used your name for. He exhaled slowly. He didn't know what new storm was coming, or who was behind that message. But he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't the same quiet boy anymore. He had spoken once, And the world had heard him. And sometimes, that's all it takes. One voice, one truth, one moment of courage to change everything. Barron slipped his phone into his pocket, turned toward the quiet lights of the city, and walked away from the water. No headlines followed him now. No cameras, no noise, just peace. Because real freedom isn't about silence. It's about finally being heard, on your own terms. And tonight, Barron Trump finally was. Thank you for spending your time with me today. If you enjoyed this story, please tap the like button. It really helps more kind and thoughtful people find stories like this.